Welcome to the Swishlist Podcast, where we talk all things basketball. Hosted by two brothers, Moses and Roman. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, welcome into the Swishlist Podcast. I'm Moses, he's Roman, episode 11. This is going to be a pretty short one. There's a couple of reasons why. One, Roman actually just got out of surgery. What normally is a pretty routine surgery, one they do on kids, tonsils and adenoids, somehow almost took our brother's life, almost ended this man's life. We are grateful to have him here this week. He was touch and go for a minute. This is not to poke fun at anybody that does have major surgeries. No, slight complication with the stitching due to the nature of the surgery and where those stitches go in the throat. They had to go back in and get those taken care of. How much blood, it kind of looked a lot worse than it was. Thankfully, Roman's okay. So he may not have the windpipes that he normally does. We're here nonetheless, people, because we owe it to you to give you the best quality basketball content we can. And you know what? We got a great episode for you today. We have plenty to talk about. It's going to be a little bit shorter of an episode than what you're used to, but that might be perfect for this week. Let's dive into it. I actually want to start in a very interesting place, Roman. This is something I've noticed over the course of the past few months. We've been running this podcast. Obviously, we're searching different players, trying to figure out their stats, who have they played for, NBA news on different players. And there's been a common theme for just about every single player that you Google. If you Google a player right now, I bet you in the top 3 searches, it's going to say wife. And I need to understand why. Roman, what is wrong with people that they have to a top three search for LeBron James is his wife, Paul George, his wife, DeMar DeRozan, his wife, Steph Curry, wife. Now Kevin Durant's not going to be on there because we all know KD ain't married. But this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This is actually ridiculous.
This is the internet at its finest. Like, this is just showing the algorithm is there. The internet knows what people want, and it is feeding it to them. Just give them a few at the top where it's, basketball, but then it's like, maybe we can get their curiosity. Let's put their wife right there. See if they look at it. Take a look for a second. Just keep them on that page for a few more seconds.
Googling an NBA player's wife is wild.
That is horrendous. You should not do that.
You are down bad. You are down so bad if you are Googling an NBA player's wife.
It's bad unless you know them or you really have a reason to do it, which I'm thinking 99% of the people who search up a player's name and then click on wife, that was not their intention originally. We know that.
You got no reason to be there, man. You got no NBA community. Shame on you. What is it? Is it like, not everybody loves basketball. Maybe you're watching the game, you're with your girl, and she's like, I wonder what that guy's wife looks like. Are they the ones doing the searches? I hope that's the case. I want that to be the case. But I think we both know that it very well may not be the case. A sad observation that I've made recently. I cannot believe it. I'm dumbfounded. I'm flabbergasted. We need to do better.
Let's bring it together and be a community. Focus on basketball. Come on.
We're looking at the wrong things. Goodness gracious. Now actually getting into basketball. There's been some interesting news this week. Where I want to start is actually talking a little bit more about the Summer League, specifically the twins. The Thompson twins, Amen and Asar, they are both absolutely dominant. And they really, I think, are the new age prototype for what an NBA player looks like. It's crazy that there's 2 of them, but they've got the size, they've got an NBA body, they're built for the game. And what I love about their highlights is they do everything on the floor. They score, they facilitate, they're on the boards, offensive rebounds, hard defense, deflections, fast break, dunks, passing. It feels like in the few games we got to see them play, and it's really sad that we saw Amen go down with an injury. In the few games we've gotten to see them play, both players are just high-level impact players in every phase of the game. What's got you impressed with the twins?
See, the thing is with them is when they were getting drafted, it was all the talk of these 2 are just playing against a bunch of high schoolers. Mm-hmm. The overtime league is nothing compared to what the NBA has. And they have been there for 2 years, so they've gotten used to playing against those types of players. And It was just, they're playing with 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds. They're not going to do anything. And I think they showed it, especially with their facilitating skills. They don't get pushed around in transition, especially Asar. Like he looks so good in transition, the way he moves the ball. And they like you said, they just look NBA ready. They're built. They look like some NBA stars. And I said this, I think these two are going to be top 10 players in 5 years. I'm saying it.
That's a bold statement. That's a really bold statement.
I really like them.
I don't know if you could get better value all around on your roster coming out of this draft than those two players. Wemby has the unicorn ceiling, and he's a great defensive player. He's Scoot Henderson, phenom on offense, another one of those prototypical driving point guards. But these two, they look like they can defend 1 through 5. They are exactly what you would want paired up with a superstar. Very excited to see what those guys can do. And I do want to give some pushback on people saying, like, hey, they didn't play against NBA competition. I want to take you to a guy, Zion Williamson. Now, I know in the league, he's missed a lot of games. He's dealt with injuries. He's dealt with off the court issues now. But if you go look at his high school mixtape, those 17-year-old kids look 12 out in South Carolina. I don't know what's going on out there, but Zion Williamson was dunking on everyone nonstop. It was just a dunk party. And in the games he's played in the league, he's been a dominant force. When it comes to NBA talent, we're talking about the 1% of athletes. They are the best of the best of the best. They are so far and away ahead of the average basketball player that it doesn't matter who their competition is for the most part. Like, they are built to go to the league. That's why you see guys like Anthony Davis who grows a foot in high school. Even CJ McCollum, you look at the growth that he had from his freshman year to his senior year. Or you hear stories about how Vince Carter could dunk in 5th grade, Chris Webber dunking in 6th grade, 50-inch verticals, all these things. Like, these guys are freaks of nature, the majority of the league. Now, I know not 100% of the people in the league are this way, but even players like JJ Redick, you go look at his high school highlights, he was torching people above the rim, 3-pointers, shooting from wherever he wanted. Like, NBA players look different. So as we continue to move into this new era of players going to the league, the AAU style, G League, overtime, Europe, there's so many paths to make it, but the cream really does rise to the top.
So many new avenues for players to get into the league, and it makes for more opportunities of bust, but it also makes more opportunities for guys who can stay in the league for 10 plus years and be a vet. So it's cool to see the guys get filtered in and out depending on where they came from.
At the same time, you could make the argument that it's easier to hit on a player today because you can see so much more of their game. You could watch every single one of their games. You could see all of their moves. You could call, like, there's so much more access to players where 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you couldn't watch somebody on a smartphone. You didn't have access to their clips at any moment. You couldn't Google somebody. The level of access that scouts have today should help filter out some of that, in my opinion. Sure, back then you had a very clear track. You know, you go to college, you play for 2 to 3, 4 years, and they've seen you play, you go to the league. Maybe you get 1 or 2 European players, but the Euro guys were nothing like what they are today. Well, now, if you're a scout, you're probably struggling more from analysis paralysis than anything else because there's so much information on a lot of these guys that it can be difficult to siphon out what's most important. But you've got more data now than ever on these players. I feel like it should be easier today to scout players than it's ever been before. Am I wrong?
No, I think it brings up another good point of, like, where is it going to be years from now? Like, what's going to be the main source of young talent? Is it still going to be college, or will it be like a certain Euro league, or will it be the overtime league? Will it be guys going to the G League? I'm really excited for the future, like 10 years from now, where most of these NBA prospects are going to be coming from, or if it'll be like a even split or outweigh somewhere. So I'm excited for the future in terms of the draft.
One of the things a lot of people bring up about Europe is that these kids play against pros, right? And the way that European sports are built is you are a basketball player. That is what you do. It's not that you're a college student who plays basketball. You're a basketball player. It's your life. It's your business. What if basketball reaches a point where it becomes like soccer in the sense that if you're a phenom in high school, you go to a basketball academy and it's built to get you to the NBA. And that's what it does. And they've got the affiliates necessary. They're able to bring the scouts in from the league. You don't have the red tape that you get from the NCAA. And that becomes the way or the model, maybe the standard. The players go to the league. Well, the Thompson twins may trailblaze that process. And we're not saying it's what's going to happen, but if you want to praise the European players for coming over here and being more mature and this, that, and the other, well, that's kind of how they go. They play in these academies. All they do is play basketball. Some turn pro very early. If we create that same aspect, maybe it does clean up some of the AAU style that people don't love, and it focuses more on the game of basketball as a whole, not just the one individual. It's an interesting thought.
Yeah, these next few years of recruiting, we'll see how much highlights really matter.
Let's kind of move from there. There was an announcement made after Phoenix traded campaign that Bradley Beal is actually going to be their starting point guard. This is a guy that I've never seen play point guard a day in my life, not in college, not in the pros. Do you think that Bradley Beal at point guard, does it work? Is it a good fit?
I like it. We talk about these types of things a lot, like this guy's a two guard, he needs the ball in his hands. But when I see Bradley Beal, he doesn't seem like that type of player who is going to be like, I need to have the rock more than Devin Booker or KD. I feel like he can be that type of player where he could still go out there and get his 20 points, but he can do it in a facilitating way. The guy is a great mid-range shooter. He can shoot the three ball. He can get to the hoop. Like, he's a slasher. Let's not forget this. He's not just a nobody. This is Bradley Beal. So I think as long as he embraces that role, it's going to work out great for them.
He did in his press conference say that this was Devin Booker's city, that he knows whose arena it is. And Bradley Beal, he's been the number 2 option before. Not to say he's the number 2 in Phoenix, but he's played second fiddle before. He understands the role. John Wall was the guy when they were young. And if there's one thing you can respect about Beal through this entire process, it's that he has been willing to be moldable to make this work. So he's a team guy. Like, he's a team guy. My fear is when we turn on a Phoenix Suns game, because Beal's not a point guard, is that you're going to see a lot of standing and watching while one guy goes off the dribble. Very similar to the Heatles run 2011 to 2014. It felt like it was a lot, okay, LeBron's going to do his thing, and then he's going to kick to somebody. All right, this possession, it's Wade's turn. Okay, this possession, we're going to give it to Bosh. Okay, now back to LeBron. I'm afraid that we might see that because Beal's not a true point guard. That puts the pressure on Vogel for me. He's got to be able to maximize their effectiveness through coaching and play calling. And with Isaiah Thomas as an advisor, I don't know if he's as involved at an X's and O's level, but you'd hope that he'd be able to maybe even help Beal improve his game in this aspect as well. It's another element that makes the Phoenix Suns pretty fun to watch. With that, you also have Bol Bol, who joined Phoenix. He's such an enigma, man. It's really hard to...
Yeah, we had this conversation.
Like, when you look at Bol Bol, do you think this is a guy who's going to start for Phoenix? Do you think he's more of a bench guy? What's the play with Bol Bol?
Second unit. I don't know, especially if Aiden's still there. It seems like a fun guy who can go out there and get you 10 points and 6 boards in his 15 minutes of game time. So I think it'd be perfect for a second unit, electric player, get the hype going, keep your plus minus where it needs to be for your bench minutes. But I don't see Bol Bol as that type of guy who's making a big effect on that Suns team this year, but can help improve them as a role player.
I think it's a great role player signing for them. A big that can shoot exactly what you need, gives you some floor spacing for minutes that are shared with Ayton, where you lost your big men to some other teams. Some of those role player bigs that you saw in the playoffs, they're not going to be there. So I think it's a good pickup by them. Let's shift gears a little bit to a player that used to be in Phoenix that was a very true point guard, Chris Paul. He is now obviously playing for Golden State. We're not having the him in Golden State conversation. We're talking about some news that came out this week when a reporter asked this.
You'd be coming off the bench playing with a second unit that's a lot younger than the Warriors of the past have been with JK and Moses. Just what do you think of their depth, their bench players that you might be playing alongside?
You coaching?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what the situation is going to be yet. You know what I mean? So I think that'll be for us to figure out once we get going.
You've never come off the bench in your entire career. Is that something that you'd be willing to do?
Like I said, it'll be a conversation for us when camp starts or whatnot. But me and Steve have talked or whatnot. But that ain't something that you be like, "What up, man? Where you starting? You coming off?" You know what I mean? So I think we'll figure all that stuff out in camp.
And when I first saw this, I thought it was reports of, hey, Chris Paul might come off the bench. And I thought, well, that could be interesting, I guess, if he took a backseat role and just ran the second team. But this is Chris Paul we're talking about. This guy doesn't want to come off the bench. So it immediately threw me off that he was like, that conversation hasn't happened. It totally comes off as, I'm Chris Paul, I'm not coming off the bench. And I don't think that bodes well for them. You can't have a starting lineup with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Chris Paul. I don't know if Klay is going to be there, but I don't like that. And I don't like the way that Chris Paul handles this. Like you said, this guy's 38 years old. He's definitely on a decline. He gets injured every year. You're not the same Chris Paul that you were with the Clippers 8 years ago. I don't like his attitude towards it, and I'm just waiting for that conversation to see how that goes with Steve Kerr.
When I look at Beal, he chose to go to Phoenix, so he accepted his role because it's what he wanted. There's no reports that Chris Paul wanted to go to Golden State. It doesn't even feel like the right fit anyways. And now with Chris Paul saying things like this, it does make it worse. It reminds me of when Carmelo went to OKC, when he's talking to Chris Paul, actually.
How do you feel about starting at the 4, or the concept of starting at the 4, or even coming off the bench? And the second question is...
Who, me?
Oh. I guess that answers that part.
I mean, I don't know where that started, where that came from. Hey, P, they said I got to come off the bench.
Let's be honest. Who's Chris Paul going to replace? You're not replacing Steph. You're not replacing Klay because it's Steph and Klay. You're not replacing Draymond. There's no way you're coming in for Wiggins. And you're not a center. So in what world do you start the game? Do you want to get the tip off and have Steve Kerr call a timeout so you can still get the start and then you can play with the second unit? Because that's the only realistic way that you're a starter for me, in my opinion, because you're walking into a team that's won championships. They're a dynasty. You're not. You may be the point guard, but this is the team that's put you in Cancun multiple times. So I feel like Chris Paul should have handled this a little bit better. There was a better way to answer the reporter, a smarter way to answer the reporter, one that would make it so we wouldn't even be having this conversation. But here we are. So I think it's a miss by Chris Paul. And let's be real. You're 38. You're coming off the bench.
If he don't reevaluate, he's either going to be on another team or he's not going to be playing at all.
I don't think he's playing for Golden State after the trade deadline. There's no way he's on this roster the full season. I just don't see it. I don't see it. There's no way. I think that he's going to be a trade piece, acquire something else. He's going to get moved again for sure. There's been a lot of talk in the news about LeBron James, his announcement at the ESPYs that he's not going to retire. And the ESPYs are hilarious, man. It's such a pointless event. And I was listening to the Doug Gottlieb show, and they talk about how the ESPYs are pointless. And this was the point they made, Roman. When you introduce any player, you talk about all NBAs, championships, Super Bowls, all these different things, MVPs. You know what you never bring up? How many ESPYs they won. It's literally never been a part of any conversation when it comes to sports. So that's how you know that the award show is meaningless. Basically what it is you tell these people, hey, you're going to win an award. We need you to show up. LeBron won an award for the best record to ever be broken. And he let everybody know he's coming back for another season. And you know what I want to see from LeBron James in this season? And I know some of you are thinking maybe less crying to the refs, not trading half the roster at the deadline. It's actually none of those things. What I want to see from LeBron James is I want him to bring back the post-COVID gray beard, but in the league. I don't think there's a bigger flex than to see LeBron in 23, gray beard, giving you 35, giving you 28, 8-8.
He does this in the off season, like where he'll post something on his story in the middle of July or August. he's rocking like a gray beard, or he's got like a bunch of gray in his beard. So I like what you say about this. It would be just flex of the century. Like, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm old now and I'm still getting 37-7 on you guys. So I like this idea a lot. I think it would be really funny to see LeBron do just embrace the grays, embrace that you're almost 40, and he can still be that guy, because it's not like LeBron's a role player and he's giving us 10 a night with 2 and 3. Like, LeBron's still going to get close to a triple double on his good nights. So it'd be really funny to see the full gray. Maybe some gray up top too if he did it.
No. Hey, you died
Come
the top,
on.
LeBron. Do your thing with the top. I know you. We talk about how much money this man spends on taking care of his body. I don't know. He might spend twice as much trying to maintain what's going on the top of his head. And I'm here for it, LeBron. You keep doing that. But the beard, let it go gray.
Oh,
Go see your barber. Have him trim it up nice. I think you got to let it happen.
I think you should
would
let
be
it all go. We got teenage Bron, we got adult LeBron, and then we got Grandpa Bron. I think we should get
we
all 3 of them.
we need Grandpa Braun. We need Braun's newest nickname to be Father Time. Braun's
We already got
nickname,
that. We already got
Braun,
that.
this should be Father Time Braun. We need that in this upcoming year. Send this clip to LeBron. Tag LeBron. We need LeBron to see this. LeBron, we need this, man. I want to jump to another legend. And this conversation is going to ruffle some feathers. But you know what? That's what you have to do sometimes. You have to break people's reality when you just know that they're wrong. There are too many people my age, in my generation, and I'm talking anywhere from 24 to 34, right around that age, that are saying that Kobe Bryant is better than Michael Jordan. I know you might think that's blasphemous, but we've posted enough clips that have involved Kobe and MJ, and we've had too many comments saying that Kobe's better. And what I'm not trying to do is write down a bunch of stats and tell you why MJ's better, because in your heart of hearts, you already know, okay? You already know he's a better player. If you don't have him as the greatest, if you've got LeBron number 1, you've got MJ at 2. It's blasphemous to put Kobe over MJ. It really is. Why are so many people doing it?
It's again that thing where we got people talking like, who's my GOAT versus who is the GOAT? Who's your favorite player versus who is the best player? And I don't know. I think people mix that up a lot. People don't really like to explain themselves enough. And I think a lot of people are just saying, no, Kobe's the best player because he's my favorite. But then you get these people in the comments everywhere who are like, Kobe was a better shooter than Jordan. He shot the 3 ball. Jordan couldn't shoot the 3 ball. And once you start getting into the stats, if you're going to get into stats, it's a really hard way to go, because MJ beats him in literally everything else except for 3-point shooting.
Yep.
And so these Kobe stands just sound kind of crazy, but there's so many of them that back him up. And I think the Mamba mentality is part of it. Is unexpected death is part of it too. Like, remembering Kobe is a lot more of instead of remembering his playing time, it's remembering when he was alive. And so you get a lot more of these kids who are like, oh, this guy's a legend. Like, he's dead. I need to appreciate that. So I think it's not even recency bias at this point. It's more of just like who's popular in the media.
I lived in Southern California for about 5 years when I was young. As a kid, I remember watching Kobe win championships with Shaq, where Shaq was the better player, America. I remember when I moved to North Carolina and I had a purple and gold puffer jacket that had Lakers on it, because I'd never seen someone play with my own two eyes live like Kobe Bryant. I didn't get to watch Michael Jordan play live. I did get to watch Kobe, and he was amazing. And my early years were watching that man play. He was great, but you have to wake up to reality and understand that when it matters most, MJ was better. In the 6 championships, MJ was without question the better player. In Kobe's runs, his last 2 championships, for sure, he was the guy. But Shaquille O'Neal was winning Finals MVP. Shaquille O'Neal was the dominant force, and Kobe was the number 2 option for some of those runs, and that means something. Like, we act like we forget that Kobe was not an efficient player for long stretches in his career. Sure, he would get to his point total, but the volume of shooting, and at times it would cost them games. Like, we forget that these things happened. It's crazy to me. I get it. I feel like I understand because I was that kid. I was that kid who grew up and I was watching Zoom Kobe 4 commercial with broken ankles. I was customizing Kobe's on Nike ID. Like that was me. I watched him. His whole career was my life. I get it, but at the same time, like I said, wake up to reality.
And it's no disrespect to Kobe, but yeah, you got to stop disrespecting Jordan like that.
Yeah, you can't
He
disrespect
is
MJ.
he is the better version of Kobe. To me, it just seems like those last few years, like it was just the Lakers like tribute to him. Like, hey, you gave us 5 championships. We're gonna let you do whatever you want this year. We're gonna let you take 60 shots this game. This is your farewell game. You're gonna
Yeah.
score 60, but you're gonna have to take 50 shots to do it. And they just let him do it. I don't know. That last year where you got young Jordan Clarkson, young D'Angelo Russell, that last year just seems like, Kobe, we appreciate you. We're gonna let you do whatever you want. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that year. He went out fine, but that last year was kind of sad.
We had somebody send in to us who would win in a 5v5 matchup, the 2017 All-NBA first team or the 2020 All-NBA first team. Let me break down what the teams are for you. Damian Lillard, James Harden, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Anthony Davis in 2017 versus Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Giannis, Kawhi, and Jokic. And you're taking the 2017 version of those players versus the 2020 version of these players. Roman, who wins?
This is so tough, and it's just like great matchups all around. I like the offensive team here in 2017. I don't know if you can beat a team. James Harden that year, this guy was unbelievable. And then you got KD on the Warriors, which we all know.
Yeah.
Finals MVP both times he's there.
Yep.
And LeBron in 2017. That's
Cleveland Bron.
LeBron's got a
funny.
few primes, and that prime is one of his best. At 2017, 2018 year, unbelievable. I think he played all 82 games that year. And man, I really like that team. I think this offensive unit is gonna outweigh this team with the Jokic, Curry, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and James Harden. I don't think you beat those 3.
Bro, it's crazy work on offense. It's crazy work. Plus, Dame could play off the ball with LeBron, too. The lineup is stacked. So I like to go by matchup. Steph Curry wins the point guard matchup. He's the better player. But James Harden is beating Luka. Come on, bro. Giannis versus LeBron, it's LeBron. 2017 Bron? 2017 Bron? Like, we're talking about arguably the greatest player who's ever touched a basketball.
This year with LeBron is one of the best years for LeBron ever.
LeBron James wins the matchup. Kevin Durant versus Kawhi. I'm still leaning KD. We're talking about the 7-foot monster. Like you said, finals MVPs. And if Anthony Davis, Jokic, I'm actually going to lean towards Jokic here. We actually got to see this matchup. I don't think it was necessarily prime AD, but Jokic wins that matchup. It's 3 versus 2. I'm going 2017 all day. I don't even think it's close. The play styles also are phenomenal, where LeBron can run the point, facilitate, Dame can play off ball. And LeBron has always liked to have somebody who's capable of going one-on-one when needed, where he can just kick the ball to somebody and trust them to do work. And hey, if you want to say LeBron's not clutch, Kevin Durant's going to hit the clutch shot for you. Boom, it is. You're not beating, come on now. 2020 is not beating these guys. You think you got an argument for where those 2020 guys are going to beat 2017? I need to hear it because I don't see it.
Giannis can dominate in the post, and Kawhi's your primary defender. That team is so good, though. Like, even just saying those.
Bro, that team is
like
good. Yeah, that team.
It's so true. That's so hard to just discredit that first team.
I think Luka's your biggest hole.
You put that on your story on Swishlist Podcast of Luka doing that drill.
I did.
I love that. Like, I hadn't even thought about that. I feel so ignorant talking about like Larry Bird would suck in today's game and stuff like that. Like, Luka is proof that it is not about athleticism. Like, yes, Luka has some athleticism, but there is proof there that these guys can move between generations and play just the same. The way Luka moves does not look normal. And Larry Bird, I feel like, was that exact type of thing, but you can't stop them. It's just the way they play ball. And it's really cool to see that it worked back then for the white guy who likes to trash talk. He could play. It wasn't about athleticism for him. It was just all pure skill. And it's the same thing now with Luka. It's not about his athleticism, but the way he just moves around the court. So I think it's really cool to acknowledge that it's not like Larry Bird was playing against bad competition or stuff like that. He just knew how to play basketball.
Yeah, it's wild that we discredit Larry Bird so much when this is a guy that won back-to-back-to-back MVPs, multiple championship rings. We talk about how Magic is the greatest point guard ever. His game translates all the time, but Larry Bird really has become a forgotten top 10 player. It's a shame. It really is to act like that guy's game can't translate, but Magic's can when Magic can't even shoot. And I'm not saying Magic's game doesn't translate. I'm just saying Bird's game probably translates better right now because of his ability to shoot the three ball. So if Luka can play at the size and speed that he does, hey man, with Larry's mentality, you know he would be a dominant force out there for sure.
Just a bucket getter.
Yeah, he's not playing in Europe. He's not playing in Europe like Dennis Rodman was talking about. Out of pocket. Well, you know what, guys? You may be surprised. I am too. I feel like we should have another 5 segments for you, but we don't. That's it for today. We got to save Roman as best we can. Make sure that he doesn't find himself back in the hospital. It's a short episode today, but if you enjoyed this episode, if there's anything that stood out to you, please, we want to hear about it. We're on every major social media platform. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, YouTube, TikTok. We're on all your favorite platforms. So please give us a follow if you can. Share our podcast with one new person this week that needs to learn the game of basketball. And don't just send them a clip. If you can, send them this episode. We'd love for them to listen to it. Roman, send us off.
Thank you to all the new listeners, all the current listeners. We appreciate all you. If you haven't subscribed, if you haven't followed, it's getting ridiculous. It is getting ridiculous. Swishlist Podcast, we are out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Swishlist Podcast. Catch us on social, and we'll see you next week.